Jake Morrison stood in the long line at the space station. His left leg hurt where the metal piece had replaced his real one. His shoulder ached from the old wound that never healed right. The doctor said he was lucky to be alive. Jake did not. Feel lucky today? The space station was busy. Aliens from many different worlds walked around him. Some had blue skin and long necks. Others had forearms and looked like giant bugs. A few had fur and tails like cats, but walked on two legs. They all ignored Jake as they passed by. Jake looked at his ticket again. It said Seat 4C on the passenger deck. He had paid good money for this seat. The trip from the border worlds back to Earth was long. Standing for 3 days would be very hard with his bad leg. The line moved forward slowly. Jake could see the big transport ship through the window. It was called the Stellar Dawn. The ship was white and gold and looked expensive. Rich aliens and important people used ships like this one. Behind Jake, 2 Vexery aliens talked in their strange language. Jake knew some Vexery words from his time as a soldier. They were talking about humans. The words they used were not nice. Next, called the alien at the desk. Jake walked forward. His metal leg made a small clicking sound with each step. The alien behind the desk was tall and thin with purple skin. It had big black eyes and no nose. When it spoke, its voice sounded like music, but not happy music. Ticket and papers, the alien said, without looking up. Jake handed over his documents. The ticket, his discharge papers from the army, and his passport. The alien looked at each paper very slowly. "You are human," the alien said. It was not a question. "Yes, sir," Jake replied. Sergeant Jake Morrison, Earth Defense Corps, returning home from active duty. The alien's black eyes looked at Jake's uniform. Jake wore his green military jacket with his medals on the front. He had earned those medals fighting to protect alien worlds on the outer rim of space. "There is a problem," the alien said. "What kind of problem?" Jake asked. "Humans do not sit in the passenger section. You must go to cargo area 7. Jake felt his face get hot. "My ticket says seat 4C. I paid for a passenger seat." The alien pointed to some small words at the bottom of the ticket. "Transportation rules say humans travel in special areas only. This is for the safety and comfort of other passengers." "I am a wounded soldier," Jake said. He tried to keep his voice calm. "I fought to protect Vexery colonies from raiders. I lost my leg defending alien civilians." "That does not matter," the alien said. "Rules are rules. Cargo Bay 7. Other staff will show you where to go." Jake wanted to argue more, but other passengers were waiting behind him. An important-looking alien in fancy clothes tapped his foot and looked angry about the delay. Robot came over to Jake. "Please follow me, human," it said in a flat voice. Jake followed the robot through the ship. They walked past the nice passenger areas. Jake could see soft chairs and big windows. Aliens sat drinking colorful drinks and talking. Some wore expensive clothes with jewels. Others had official badges that showed they worked for different planet governments. The robot led Jake down some stairs and through several doors. Each area they passed through was less nice than the last. Finally, they reached Cargo Bay 7. "You will stay here for the trip," the robot said. "Food will be brought 3 times per day. There is a bathroom through that door. Do not leave this area." The cargo bay was big and cold. Metal boxes and containers filled most of the space. There were no windows and no soft chairs. In one corner, someone had put some old blankets on the floor. Jake was alone. The robot had said other humans would be here, but Jake did not see anyone else. He found a metal box that was not too dirty and sat down. His leg hurt from all the walking. He took off his military jacket and folded it carefully. The metals caught the light from the ceiling. Jake thought about the war on the rim worlds. He remembered his friend Danny, who died stopping a bomb from killing alien children. He thought about Captain Lisa, who jumped on a grenade to save a Viseri family. Danny and Lisa had given their lives for aliens, who now would not let Jake sit. In a regular chair, above his head, Jake could hear music and laughter. The aliens were having a party on the passenger deck. They were probably celebrating the peace talks on Centauri Station. Jake had helped make that peace possible. He had fought in the battles that stopped the raiders from destroying more colonies. Ship's speaker came on. "Welcome aboard the Stellar Dawn," said a smooth voice. "We will be traveling to the Centauri system for the Great Peace Conference. The trip will take 3 days. We hope you enjoy your journey in comfort and style." Comfort and style, Jake thought. He looked around the cold cargo bay with its metal walls and bright lights that never turned off. Jake opened his bag and took out a picture. It showed his unit back on Earth before they shipped out to the rim. 12 soldiers with big smiles. Only Jake and 2 others had come home alive. The rest died fighting for aliens who thought humans were not good enough to sit with them. The ship began to move. Jake felt the engines start up deep in the walls around him. Soon they would jump to hyperspace and begin the long trip to Centauri. Jake lay down on the blankets someone had left in the corner. His metal leg was cold against the floor. His shoulder throbbed with each heartbeat. But he had been through worse things than sleeping in a cargo bay. As the ship jumped to hyperspace, Jake closed his eyes and tried to sleep. He did not know that in 2 days, these same aliens who refused him a seat would be begging him to save. Their lives. Tomorrow would bring new problems. But tonight, Jake Morrison just wanted to rest and forget about the war, the metals, and the aliens who saw him as less than equal. Tonight, he was just a tired soldier trying to get home. Jake woke up when the ship shook hard. His metal leg had gone numb from lying on the cold floor. The lights in the cargo bay flickered on and off. Something was very wrong. He sat up quickly and listened. The normal humming sound of the engines had stopped. Instead, he heard a new noise. It was like metal being stretched and pulled. Jake had heard that sound before during the war. It meant the ship was caught in a tractor beam. The lights went out completely. Emergency power kicked in. A few seconds later, making everything glow red, Jake stood up and walked to the small window in the cargo bay door. What he saw outside made his blood turn cold. A huge black ship sat next to the Stellar Dawn. Jake knew that shape. Every soldier in the galaxy knew it. It was a Kethron raider ship. The ship was at least 3 times bigger than their transport. Weapons stuck out from its hull like teeth in a monster's mouth. The Kethron were the worst pirates in space. They attacked ships, killed everyone on board, and took everything valuable. No one had ever survived meeting them. They did not take prisoners. They did not show mercy. They just killed and moved on to the next target. Jake's hands shook as he remembered stories from other soldiers. The Kethran liked to hunt their victims through ships before killing them. They thought it was fun. They were like giant insects, but much smarter and much meaner. The ship's speaker crackled to life. "All passengers stay calm," said Captain Veltar. His voice sounded scared, even though he tried to sound normal. "We are having small technical problems. Please remain in your rooms." Technical problems? Jake thought. The captain was lying. This was not a technical problem. This was a death sentence. Jake heard screaming from the passenger deck above him. The aliens up there were starting to understand what was happening. The party music had stopped. Now there were only sounds of fear and panic. Jake went to the cargo bay's control panel. Most of the buttons were locked, but Jake had learned tricks during his army training. He pressed several buttons in a special order. The computer screen turned on, and showed him a map of the ship. The Stellar Dawn was built for rich passengers, not for fighting. It had no weapons and very weak shields. The crew was trained to serve food and make beds, not fight space pirates. Against a Kethron battleship, they had no chance at all. New sounds came from outside the ship, high-pitched whining noises that Jake recognized. The Kethron were using cutting tools to burn through the hull. They would be inside the ship very soon. Jake opened a communication channel to the bridge. "Bridge, this is Sergeant Morrison in Cargo Bay 7. What is your situation? Who is this?" Came a voice. "Only crew can use this channel. I am Earth Defense Corps' military. I am asking for a tactical report." There was a long pause. Then Captain Viltar's voice came back. "Sergeant Morrison, this is the captain. We have no weapons, no shields, and they are cutting through our hull in 3 places. We cannot defend ourselves. What about your security team?" Jake asked. Another pause. "They have locked themselves in the secure room. They say there is no point in fighting. The Kethran always win." Jake felt angry, but not surprised. Most alien races gave up when they saw Kethran ships. They thought fighting back was stupid because the Kethran were so strong. But humans had a different way of thinking about impossible fights. "Captain, I need access to your engineering sections and emergency supplies. Can you give me the computer codes?" "Sergeant, what can one human do? We have 12 trained security officers, and they will not fight. How can you help?" Jake looked around the cargo bay. He saw maintenance tools, metal containers, and chemical tanks used for cleaning the ship. In the right hands, all of these things could become weapons. "Captain, I can do something your security team cannot do." "What is that?" "I can fight when I am supposed to lose." The captain was quiet for a moment. Then Jake heard him typing on his computer. "Sending you access codes now, Sergeant. But please understand, this is hopeless. The Kethran have never left survivors." "Maybe they never fought humans before," Jake said. The access codes appeared on Jake's screen. Now he could move through the ship and use its systems. Jake grabbed his military jacket and put it on. He checked his pockets for anything useful. A small knife, some wire, and a little device that could start fires. Jake opened the cargo bay door and stepped into the hallway. The red emergency lights made everything look like it was covered in blood. He could hear the aliens screaming louder. Now, some were crying. Others were praying to their different gods. Jake started moving toward the engineering section. His metal leg clicked with each step, but he tried to walk quietly. He had to get there before the Kethran broke through the hull. As he walked, Jake thought about his friends who had died in the war. Danny, who died protecting alien children. Lisa, who saved a whole family. Tim, who held off enemy soldiers so civilians could escape. They had all died for aliens who now thought humans were not worth saving. But that did not matter. Jake was not fighting for the aliens who had treated him badly. He was fighting because it was right. Because someone had to stand up to the monsters. Because if he did not try, everyone on this ship would die. Jake reached the engineering section just as the first breach alarm went off. The Kethran had cut through the hull in Cargo Bay 3. They were inside the ship now. Jake had maybe 10 minutes before they found him. 10 minutes to turn a luxury passenger ship into a battleground. 10 minutes to prove that humans did not give up, even when everyone said they should. He cracked his knuckles and got to work. The Kethran thought. They were hunting helpless prey. They were about to learn that humans were different from other species. Humans bit back. Jake moved fast through the engineering section. His metal legs sparked as he climbed through tight spaces and maintenance tunnels. Every step hurt, but he ignored the pain. He had work to do. The ship's power system was easy to understand. Most Of the energy went to fancy things like artificial gravity in the passenger rooms, air conditioning, and entertainment systems. Jake started changing where the power went. He turned off the luxury items and sent all that energy to make the ships. Structure stronger in the cargo areas and engineering rooms. Jake was turning the pretty parts of the ship into traps. The ugly parts would become his fortress. Next, Jake found the emergency supply rooms. The Stellar Dawn might not have military weapons, but it had tools for fixing things. Plasma cutters that could melt through metal. Machines that could make new parts. Tanks full of chemicals for cleaning. Jake had learned in the army that anything could be a weapon if you were smart enough. He took apart some of the cleaning chemical tanks and mixed different liquids together. When mixed right, these chemicals would explode. He put the homemade bombs in metal containers from the supply room. The plasma cutters were harder to change. Jake had to rewire their focusing systems to make the beam wider and more powerful. It took precious time, but now he had weapons that could hurt the Kethron. The first breach alarm got louder. Then a second alarm started. The Kethron were inside the ship in two places now. Jake could hear their clicking sounds echoing through the halls. It sounded like giant insects talking to each other. Jake used the ship's computer to seal off different sections. He created a maze that would force the Kethron to come at him from directions he chose. He put his homemade bombs in the right places and connected them to motion sensors from the security system. His shoulder was bleeding again. The old wound had opened up from all the hard work. His metal leg was making grinding noises and throwing off sparks. But Jake kept working. Above him, he could still hear the alien passengers crying and screaming. He heard Ambassador Zethkar, the same Vexery who had refused Jake a seat, talking on the ship's communication system. "Please do not hurt us," Zethkar was saying. "We surrender completely. We have money and valuable things. Take what you want, but let us live." Jake almost laughed. The Kethran did not care about money or surrender. They killed for fun. Begging would not save anyone. Jake finished his preparations and moved to his first fighting position. He had chosen a hallway that connected to 3 different routes through the ship. Any Kethron coming this way would have to pass through his trap. He did not have to wait long. Heavy footsteps echoed from around the corner. The sound was wrong for human feet. Too many steps, like something with 4 legs walking. The first Kethron warrior came around the corner, and Jake got his first good look at the enemy. It was 8 feet tall and covered in black shell-like armor. It had 4 arms, each ending in claws that looked like they could cut through steel. Its head was like a giant insect with big compound eyes and mouth parts that clicked together. The creature saw Jake and made a sound like grinding metal. It thought it had found easy prey. Jake triggered his first trap. The hallway filled with superheated plasma from his modified maintenance systems. The Kethron warrior screamed as the energy beam hit it. The sound was terrible, like fingernails. On metal mixed with a steam whistle. The warrior fell, his armor melted and smoking. Jake was already moving to his next position. More Kethran came, but they were more careful now. They tested each hallway before entering. They had realized this was not going to be as easy as they thought. Jake used his second trap when 3 warriors tried to come through the maintenance section together. His homemade bomb exploded and filled the area with deadly chemicals. 2 of the warriors died immediately. The third one lived, but was badly hurt. Jake picked up one of their weapons. It was heavy and designed for hands with 4 fingers, but he could make it work. The weapon shot energy bolts that could punch through metal walls. The hurt warrior tried to attack Jake with its claws. Jake rolled away from the strike, his metal leg giving him problems, but his training keeping him alive. He shot the warrior 3 times with its own weapon before it stopped moving. 3 down. But Jake could hear more coming. Lots more. The Catherine were getting smarter. They started moving in larger groups and checking every corner. Jake had to keep moving, using the ship's layout to stay ahead of them. He led them through more traps. A modified fire suppression system that sprayed acid instead of foam. Motion sensors connected to plasma cutters that turned hallways into death zones. Emergency blast doors that closed at the wrong time, crushing anything caught in between. But Jake was running out of tricks, and the Kethron were learning. They started sending just one warrior ahead to trigger his traps. Then the rest would come through safely. Jake was breathing hard, and his wounds were getting worse. He had killed 6 of the raiders, but more kept coming. His modified weapons were running low on power. His homemade bombs were all used up. He fell back to his final position in the main cargo bay, where this had all started. This was where he would make his last stand. Jake had prepared one final surprise here, but it would only work once. Heavy footsteps approached from 3 different directions. The Kethron had him surrounded. Jake checked his remaining weapon. 1 plasma cutter with maybe 30 seconds of charge left. The biggest Kethran warrior Jake had ever seen stepped into the cargo bay. This one was different from the others. It had scars across its shell armor and moved like a fighter who had won many battles. Its compound eyes looked at Jake with what might have been interest. "Human," it said in broken standard language. "You fight well for food meat. Your species surprises us. Surrender now, and we will kill you quickly." Jake looked at the monster that was easily twice his size and armed with weapons he could barely lift. Behind it, more warriors waited for orders. Jake was one wounded human with a nearly dead plasma cutter against a dozen alien killers. "Counteroffer," Jake said, raising his weapon. "Turn around and leave. You have lost 6 warriors to 1 hurt. Human, how will that sound in your war songs?" The Kethron leader clicked its mouthparts in what Jake realized was laughter. "Bold words, small human. We will enjoy hunting you." "You are welcome to try," Jake said. The final battle was about to begin. The Kethran leader moved faster than Jake expected. 1 second it was standing 10 feet away. The next second its claws were reaching for Jake's throat. Jake threw himself sideways, his metal leg making him stumble, but also making his movement. Unpredictable. The leader's claws scraped against the metal wall where Jake's head had been. Jake rolled and came up firing his plasma cutter. The beam hit the creature in the shoulder, burning through its shell armor. The leader roared in pain and anger. Jake kept moving. He could not let the big warrior get close enough to use its claws. The plasma cutter had maybe 20 seconds of charge left. He had to make every shot count. The other Kethran warriors spread out around the cargo bay, blocking all the exits. They were not helping their leader fight. This was a challenge between warriors, and they would let it play out 1-on-1. Jake fired again, aiming for the leader's legs. The beam hit but only left a burn mark on the thick armor. The creature was tougher than the others. It had survived many battles by being harder to kill. The leader charged again. This time Jake could not dodge fast enough. 2 of its 4 arms grabbed him and lifted him off the ground. Jake could smell its breath, which was like rotting meat mixed with metal polish. "You fight better than expected, human," the leader said, holding Jake up to eye level. "But you are still just soft meat." Jake still had his plasma cutter in his hand. At this close range, he could not miss. He pressed the weapon against the creature's neck and fired. The beam burned through the shell and into the soft tissue underneath. Leader screamed and threw Jake across the cargo bay. Jake hit a metal container hard and felt something crack in his ribs. His plasma cutter flew out of his hands and skittered across the floor. Its charge finally dead. Jake struggled to get up. His metal leg was making grinding sounds in wood. Not bend right. Blood ran down his face from where he had hit the container. The Kethran leader was hurt, but still very much alive. It was holding its neck where Jake had burned it, but the wound was not deep enough to be fatal. "No more weapons, human," the leader said. "Now we finish this the old way." Jake looked around the cargo bay for anything he could use. The other Kethran watched silently, their compound eyes reflecting the red emergency lights. They wanted to see how this would end. Jake's hand found a piece of metal that had broken off from his leg when he hit the container. It was sharp and about as long as a knife. Not much of a weapon against a creature with natural armor, but it was better than nothing. The leader came at him more carefully this time. It had learned to respect Jake's ability to hurt it. The creature used all four arms to attack from different angles, making it impossible for Jake to defend against everything. Jake felt claws rake across his chest, tearing through his military jacket and the skin underneath. He stabbed with his metal shard and felt it scrape against shell armor. The leader grabbed his arm and started to squeeze. Jake could feel his bones starting to bend under the pressure. Desperate, Jake remembered something from his military training. When fighting a larger opponent, use their size against them. Jake threw his weight forward and down, pulling the leader off balance. They both crashed to the floor in a tangle of arms and legs. Jake ended up on top of the creature's back. He could see a gap in the shell armor at the base of its neck. Jake raised his metal shard and drove it down as hard as he could. The leader bucked and rolled, trying to throw Jake off. But Jake held on and kept stabbing at the weak spot. Finally, the metal piece found its mark and slid between two shell plates. Jake felt it pierce something soft inside. The Kethran leader went rigid. Its four arms stopped moving. Its compound eyes went dark. After a few seconds, it stopped breathing. Jake rolled off the dead creature and lay on the floor, gasping. His ribs hurt with every breath. His metal leg was completely broken now. Blood dripped from multiple wounds. The other Kethran warriors looked at their dead leader, then at Jake. For a moment, nobody moved. Jake waited for them to attack him all. At once, he had nothing left to fight with Dot. Instead, something unexpected happened. The warriors began backing away. One of them, smaller than the leader, but still huge compared to Jake, stepped forward. "You have won, human," it said in the same broken standard. "Our war leader is dead. According to our laws, you are now the victor." Jake tried to sit up, but his ribs screamed in protest. "Does that mean you are leaving?" "It means we acknowledge your strength. You have fought with honor. We will remember this." The Kethran warrior turned to the others and made clicking sounds in their own language. The group began moving toward the exits. They carried their dead leader with them, treating the body with careful respect. Dot as they left. The warrior who had spoken turned back to Jake. "What is your name, human warrior?" "Jake Morrison. Sergeant, Earth Defense Corps. I am Kethaner of the Bone Fleet. Your name will be spoken in our war songs, Jake Morrison. You have shown us that humans are not the weak prey we thought." With that, the Kethran left. Jake could hear their heavy footsteps moving through the ship toward their cutting holes. Soon, the sound of their ship's engines started up. The tractor beam released the stellar dawn, and the raider ship moved away. Jake lay on the cargo bay floor, listening to his own heartbeat. He had done it. Against all odds, he had saved the ship. Everyone who had treated him like a second-class citizen was still alive because of what he had done here. The emergency lights flickered, and then the normal lighting came back on. The ship's engines started humming again. Life support systems returned to normal. Captain Veltar's voice came over the ship's communication system. "This is the captain. The hostile ship has departed. All passengers are safe. I repeat, we are no longer under attack." Jake heard footsteps on the stairs leading down to the cargo bay. Soon, Alien faces appeared at the doorway. Passengers and crew members stared at the scene. Dead Kethran bodies scattered around the bay. Burn marks on the walls from the fighting. And in the middle of it all, one wounded human soldier sitting among the wreckage. Ambassador Zethkar was among the group. His blue skin was pale, and his hands shook as he looked at what Jake had done. "How is this possible?" The ambassador whispered. "One human against 12 Kethran?" Jake looked up at the alien who had refused him a seat just 2 days ago. The same alien who had surrendered immediately when the raiders attacked. Jake was too tired to be angry anymore. "Maybe next time," Jake said quietly, "you should not assume the person you refuse a seat to cannot fight." The cargo bay fell silent, except for the sound of Jake's labored breathing and the gentle hum of the ship's engines carrying them all safely home. News traveled fast across the galaxy. Within 3 days, every planet with a communication system had heard the story. A human soldier named Jake Morrison had fought 12 Kethran raiders alone and won. The impossible had happened. The security. Recordings from the stellar dawn were played on news programs across hundreds of worlds. Military experts studied the videos, trying to understand what they had seen. Scientists wrote papers about human psychology and combat ability. Everyone wanted to know how one wounded soldier had done what entire security teams could not. Jake did not want to be famous. He sat in the medical bay of the ship while doctors fixed his broken ribs and gave him a new metal leg. Reporters sent messages asking for interviews. Military leaders from different planets wanted to offer him jobs. Jake ignored them all. Captain Veltar came to visit Jake in the medical bay. The alien captain looked embarrassed and would not meet Jake's eyes. "Sergeant Morrison," the captain said, "I owe you an apology." "We all do. Without you, everyone on this ship would be dead." "I was just doing my job," Jake replied. "No," the captain said. "Your job was to be a passenger. What you did was far beyond duty. You saved us after we treated you badly. That takes a special kind of person." The captain placed a small device on Jake's bedside table. "This contains copies of all the security recordings from the battle. The Galactic Council wants to see them. They are calling an emergency session to discuss what happened." Jake picked up the device and looked at it. "What do they want to discuss?" "How wrong we have been about humans," the captain said quietly. "How wrong we have been about everything." When the ship reached Centauri Station, Jake found himself in the middle of a media storm. Reporters from every major news network waited at the docking bay. Security guards had to help Jake through the crowd of flashing cameras and shouting questions. The Galactic Council building was huge and made of white stone that seemed to glow in the sunlight. Jake had never been inside before. Most humans had never been inside. It was a place for important aliens to make decisions about the galaxy. Jake wore his dress uniform with all his medals. His new metal leg worked better than his old one, but he still walked with a slight limp. The council chambers were filled with representatives from hundreds of different worlds. Council Speaker Morden was a tall alien with gray skin and 3 eyes. He looked down at Jake from his high platform and spoke in a voice that echoed through the chamber. "We are here to discuss the events aboard the transport ship Stellar Dawn," the speaker said. "Specifically, how our policies and beliefs about different species may need to change." A holographic display showed the security recordings from Jake's battle. The alien representatives watched in silence as the videos played. Some looked shocked. Others looked afraid. A few looked impressed. When the videos ended, Ambassador Zethkar stood up. He looked different than he had on the ship, less arrogant, more thoughtful. "Speaker Morden, honored representatives," Zethkar began. "I was on that ship. I was one of the beings who denied Sergeant Morrison basic respect and comfort. I watched him save all our lives after we treated him like he was worthless. The ambassador's voice grew stronger. I thought humans were weak because they were new to space travel. I thought they had nothing to teach us because our civilizations were older. I was completely wrong. Zethkar looked directly at Jake. Sergeant Morrison did not fight 12 Kethran warriors because he was stronger than them. He fought them because he was better than them. Better than us. He had something we had forgotten. What was that? Asked a representative with purple fur and big ears. Honor, Zethkar said simply. The willingness to do what is right, even when it is hard. Even when the people you are helping do not deserve it. The council chamber buzzed with conversation. Representatives talked to each other in dozens of different languages. Some argued. Others nodded in agreement. Speaker Mordon called for order. Sergeant Morrison, you may address the council if you wish. Jake stood up slowly. His ribs still hurt, but he tried not to show it. Looking up at hundreds of alien faces was intimidating, but he had faced worse things than politicians. Honored representatives, Jake began. I did not fight those raiders to become famous or to prove anything about humans. I fought them because it was the right thing to do. Jake paused and looked around the chamber. Every species here has soldiers. Every world has people who risk their lives to protect others. The problem is not that humans are special. The problem is that you forgot what your own heroes look like. Some of the representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. You made rules that said some people matter more than others based on how old their civilizations are or what their technology looks like, Jake continued. But strength does not come from having the newest chips or the oldest cultures. It comes from being willing to stand up when others cannot. Jake's voice got stronger. Any soldier from any species would have done what I did if they remembered why they became soldiers. In the first place, to protect people who cannot protect themselves, even people who do not like them. The chamber was completely quiet now. Even the translator machines had stopped humming. I do not want medals or job offers, Jake said. I want you to remember that heroism is not about species or technology or politics. It is about doing what is right when it would be easier to give up. Jake sat down. The chamber stayed silent for several seconds before Speaker Mordon spoke again. The council will now vote on the Morrison protocols, the speaker announced. These new rules will ensure that military veterans of all species receive equal treatment on civilian transport. More importantly, they will remind us that honor and courage can come from anywhere. The vote was unanimous. Every representative voted yes. Over the following weeks, the Morrison protocols were implemented across the galaxy. Ships could no longer segregate passengers by species. Military service was recognized and respected regardless of what planet the soldier came from. Training programs were started to teach civilian crews about different species and their contributions to galactic security. But the biggest change was harder to measure. Young aliens started joining their own militaries after hearing Jake's story. They wanted to learn what it meant to be a hero. Military academies began teaching courses about human combat psychology and the importance of never giving up. Jake returned to Earth quietly. He turned down offers to teach at the Galactic Military Academy. He refused to write a book about his experience. He did not want to be on talk shows or give speeches. Instead, Jake moved to a small town in the mountains. He worked part-time at a center that helped veterans adjust to civilian life. In the evenings, he sat on his porch and watched the stars. Sometimes, neighbors would ask him about his famous battle. Jake would always give the same answer. I was not fighting to be a hero, he would say. I was fighting because someone had to. That is what soldiers do. We stand guard so others can sleep safely. The galaxy had learned something important from Jake Morrison. True strength was not about having the biggest weapons or the most advanced technology. It was about having the courage to do what was right, even when you were scared, even when you were outnumbered, and even when the people you were helping did not think you were worth saving. Jake had reminded everyone what it really meant to be a hero. And sometimes that made all the difference in keeping civilization from falling apart. In the end, Jake Morrison had done more than save one ship. He had saved the idea that anyone, from anywhere, could choose to be better than their circumstances. That was a lesson the galaxy would not soon forget.